Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. So we will resume our discussion on the 14th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, the three modes of material nature. Last time we ended at verse 20. So we will resume from verse 21. Arjun Vacha Kairlinge Trin Gunane Tanatito Bhavati Prabhu Kimacharaha Katham Chaitams Trin Gunanati Vartate. Arjun inquired, O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior and how does he transcend the modes of nature? So in the preceding sections, Krishna had introduced Arjun to the three modes of material nature, Prakriti. He had described the nature of each of the three modes. He had also described how the jiva comes in contact with the modes and how the modes bind the jiva. While all this is interesting to Arjun, he is more interested in finding out how can one transcend the modes, because the modes are the single most prominent impediment in one making spiritual advancements or liberation. So if you look at this question, we see that asking three questions of Krishna. The first is, by what symptoms can a person know that he himself is beyond the modes? The second is, what is his conduct? Does he act as per his free will, or is he still bound by rules and regulations? And the third is, by which practice can a person surpass these gunas? So, if you remember the questions that were asked by Arjun to Krishna in the second chapter, specifically verse 54, he had asked Krishna Sthita Pragyas Bhasha. Right? So he had asked from Krishna that what are the symptoms of one who is Sthita Pragyas, or one who is situated in the self. At that time, the focus of Arjun's ask was from the perspective of one who has attained the state of Nishkam Karma, one who is not agitated. Now, essentially, the question is the same, because here also the focus is on one who has attained equanimity. And acharyas say that out of eagerness, Arjun repeats the same question, but he makes one additional inquiry: how to surpass the modes. Why does he ask this additional question? Because between the second chapter and the 14th chapter, he has heard about the greatness of Krishna. And he is confident that if anybody can guide him in transcending the modes, it is Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada, he specifically glorifies the last question. He says that Arjun inquires by the means at which he can attain the transcendental nature. This is very important. Unless one knows the direct means by which one can be situated always transcendently, there is no possibility of showing the symptoms. So all these questions put by Arjun are very important. So that distinction needs to be understood, that the symptoms should not be confused with the cause. When one is healthy, then there are different symptoms. person is energetic, the person is has vitality, but these are symptoms in themselves. They do not mean the person is healthy. Health is a state of well-being. So from verses 21 to 25, the discussion would be on how can one transcend these modes. Next verse. Verses 22 to 25. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Prakasham cha Prakriti Pravritim cha Moham eva cha Pandava Nadveshati Sampratani Nanivritani Kangshati Udasina Vadasino Guneryo Na Vichalayate Gunavartanta Ittevam Yovatisthati Nengate Samadukha Sukha Swastha Samalostashmakanchana Tulya Priya Priyodhiras Tulya Nindatma Samstutihi Manapamanayostulya Stulyo Mitrari Pakshayo Sarvaram Parityagi Gunatita Sauchyate. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment and delusion when they are present or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal towards the desirable and undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. Now, in these set of verses, Krishna is essentially giving the symptoms of one who transcends the modes. So, let us review the underlying qualities that help the person develop these symptoms. So, in these 5 verses, Krishna has described 12 qualities. And we'll go over them quickly again and then correlate them with the question that Arjuna asked. First he says is that the person does not hate illumination, attachment and delusion when they are present or long for them when they are not present. So illumination is mode of goodness, attachment is mode of passion, and delusion is mode of ignorance. So the quality that essentially Krishna is talking about is neutrality to the modes. So such a person does not hanker for either the mode of goodness, passion or ignorance when they are absent, nor does he, if they are present, nor does he hate them. So this is essentially answering the first question of Arjuna, that by what symptoms can a person know that he himself is beyond the modes. So this is the symptom, that the person is not attracted by the result of any of the 3 modes, nor is he bewildered by the presence of any of the 3 modes. So this is a state of complete neutrality. The remaining 11 qualities that have been described are essentially answering the second question, that what is the conduct of such a person. So the summation of the conduct is that the person is equal to happiness and distress. Why? Because he knows that they have nothing to do with spirit. Secondly, he is equal to praise and criticism, because he knows they are directed to the gross and subtle body but not to the soul. And third is that he is equipoised in respect and disrespect. So there are 3 successively higher states. That for a person who has some level of detachment from the gross perspective, that maybe eating palatable food makes a person happy, extreme weather makes the person unhappy. So these are very much predicated on the senses and the engagement with the sense objects. Then that is the first level. Praise and criticism is more subtle, because it affects the subtle body. That is even higher. And respect and disrespect is even more subtle, because praise and criticism requires the other persons to speak. Somebody has to speak and praise you or criticize you. Respect and disrespect can be done by one's body and mind. So many times disrespect is not by commission, by omission. The person may not greet the other person, the person may ignore what the person is saying. So it is even more subtle. So essentially, these qualities can be summarized in 2 words: equanimity and detachment. So when a person begins to display equanimity, then the person can be known to be beyond the modes. And when the person begins to act in detachment, then the conduct of the person is one who has transcended the modes. Now, we know that through the process of devotion, one can easily transcend the modes. But even in devotion, there is a focus to at least be at the stage of mode of goodness. So if you look at the various do's and don'ts for devotees, practicing devotees, the 4 regulative principles, the injunctions for cleanliness, punctuality, respect, these are all qualities of one in the mode of goodness. So the mode of goodness acts as the springboard to transcending the modes. It is very difficult for one in the mode of passion or ignorance to be able to transcend the mode. Okay, next verse. Verse 26. Mam cha yoga vicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samityetan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Very, very important verse, very often quoted by Srila Prabhupada, by many Vaishnavas, because this is kind of the springboard for aspiring devotees to attain perfection. Because aspiring devotees are very much within the modes. And in the previous verse it was seen that in order to display the detachment and equanimity, the mode of goodness is the bare minimum. But in this verse, Krishna is now giving us an easy way. Mam chaya vibicharena bhakti yogena sevate. That simply by executing devotional service. What kind of devotional service? Avibicharena. So this is uninterrupted devotional service. This is not devotional service that is colored by karma or gyan or by the modes. So by executing Shuddha Bhakti, by executing pure devotional service, Sagunan Samityeta, that all the modes, Gunan, all the modes of material natures, Samityetan, they are transcended. And what does the person do after transcending them? Brahmabhuyaya kalpate. So this is again an important statement, because Krishna says that he comes to the level of Brahman. Now one should not mistake this statement saying that this person then either becomes Brahman or becomes Krishna or becomes loses his identity. Because if the jiva was already Krishna, then there was no question of the jiva coming under the modes. That's one reason the impersonalists are called Mayavadis, because they subscribe to this notion of the Supreme Lord. If the jiva is the same as the Supreme Lord, and if the jiva is coming under the modes, then they are implicitly subscribing to the notion that the modes of material nature, which is Maya, is superior to the Supreme Lord. So that's why they are called Mayavadis. So when Krishna says comes to the level of Brahman, Srila Prabhupada explains that the person comes to the level of Brahman realization. That I am not this body, but I am the spirit soul. So notice the use of the word cha. Mam cha yo vivicharena. So cha means only, exclusively. So what does that mean? That there is no other way. The only way to transcend the modes is by the execution of devotional service. The only way, Brahmabhuyaya kalpate, by transcending the modes, is Mam chayo vivacharena bhakti yogena sevate. Next verse. Verse 27. Brahmano hi prathishtam amritasya vyavasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukhasya kantikasya cha. And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. So again, one very important verse that picks up from where the last verse left. So the last verse, Krishna says, Mam chayo vibicharena bhakti yogena sevate. That by the execution of my devotional service, one will reach to the level of Brahman. Now, an aspiring devotee may ask that why should I execute devotional service for Brahman? I have no interest in Brahman. I have interested in Shyam Sundar, Krishna. So, does the previous verse even become relevant to me? So Krishna completes that thought saying that I am the basis of that impersonal Brahman. So essentially what Krishna is saying, that by the execution of devotional service, one transcends the modes and attains Him. So, Brahman, as we discussed previously, could mean one of two things. It could mean the Jiva. So then we said that attaining Brahman means attaining self-realization of one's spiritual identity, or it could mean Krishna. So in either of the two cases, Krishna says, I am the basis of it. So when he says it in the context of Jiva, what he means that qualitatively the Jiva and Krishna are the same. And when he talks in terms of the impersonal Brahman, then Krishna says that I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman as well as the Paramatma. So this is the last verse of the chapter, and this verse you see resonates with two other verses that were spoken earlier on. In 10:13 spoken by Arjun and 13:13 spoken by Krishna. There's relationship between Krishna and Brahman and the exclusivity of devotional service in attaining that realization. So essentially this chapter gives us a philosophical understanding of devotional service. Even though it said the three modes of material nature, which are completely material, but it is helping us apply our intelligence to understand the modes of material nature. Then we will understand the influence of the Paramatma who is enacting the modes. And that will make us free from envy. When we see the same modes in us and around us, we see the same super soul who is enacting them, we understand that essentially there is us and Krishna. And in that mood of helplessness, we need to surrender to Krishna. When we see the modes and understand how powerful they are, how the three modes intertwine with one another over and over again to bind us and have been binding us since time immemorial, then the urgency to surrender to Krishna becomes strong. People who are within the modes are trying to escape from inside out. That they have been locked inside a trunk, and from inside they're coming out. But when the devotees understand the nature of this binding, they realize that they need help from outside. So they turn to Krishna, they turn to other devotees, they turn to their spiritual master. So Prabhupada summarizes the chapter in the purport. He says that the living entity, although Brahman by nature, has the desire to lord it over the material world. And due to this, he falls down. In his constitutional position, a living entity is above the three modes of material nature, but association with material nature entangles him in the different modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Due to the association of these three modes, his desire to dominate the material world is there. By engagement in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, he is immediately situated in the transcendental position, and his unlawful desire to control material nature is removed. Right? So, statement that Prabhupada is making that pure devotional service takes place on the Brahman platform, which means that the spiritual platform is beyond the control of the three modes of material nature, which is why Krishna is teaching us about them so that we can recognize them and transcend them. Okay, so we'll end over here. This brings us to the end of the 14th chapter. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.